Alright guys, well, it seems like the worm has taken control of RFK Jr.'s brain again. Because this might be actually the worst possible idea that RFK Jr. has ever came up with, and that bar is actually set rather high. I mean, we all know about RFK Jr.'s opinions on vaccines and autism. We all know about the misinformation and disinformation that he has shared on the COVID vaccines through both of his books. Then, of course, there was a time that he suggested that HIV actually doesn't lead to AIDS. And who could forget when he suggested that chemicals in the water were influencing changes in gender in our children. And up until this point, I thought possibly his craziest idea ever was that the COVID vaccine was targeting blacks and Caucasians and avoiding Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese people. And when we're talking about a guy who at one point or another admitted to Roseanne Barr that he had, taken a dead bear and drove it around and then dropped it on a bicycle in the middle of Central Park and potentially also one time cut the head off of a well. Let's just say the bar is very high. But as is always the case in MAGA, that bar is never too high. RFK Jr. unveils disturbing plan to combat the bird flu. Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy Jr. thinks that the bird flu should be allowed to spread unchecked to identify birds that could be immune. Kennedy said in a recent Fox News interview that farmers should consider maybe the possibility of letting it run through the flock so that we can identify the birds and preserve the birds that are immune to it. An idea that experts say would be dangerous and hurt the poultry industry. And of course, this is big right now because the price of eggs in many ways is declining right now, because of the Biden administration's efforts to cull birds that had the bird flu and the decision of consumers to purchase less eggs because of heightening egg prices. This has caused demand to go lower, which has led to lower prices for eggs, but not potentially in the grocery stores yet. And we're going to get to that in a second. That's a really terrible idea for any number of reasons, Dr. Gail Hansen, a former state veterinarian for Kansas, told the New York Times. Every new infection of the H5N1 virus is a chance that it will mutate and become more powerful and spread further, although it still hasn't been proven to spread between people. But if it were allowed to spread through millions of birds, that's literally 5 million chances for that virus to replicate or to mutate, Hansen said. And of course, if RFK Jr. had read an actual book on the virus and how it spread during COVID, he would probably know this. While Kennedy's department doesn't have any regulatory power over farms, Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins agrees, because the MAGA mind virus, it's spread actually pretty quickly and probably has mutated multiple times at this point. There are some farmers that are out there that are willing to really try this on as a pilot as we build a safe perimeter around them to see if there's a way forward with immunity, Rollins said on Fox News in February. Yeah. Good luck to those farmers. I'm going to guess that they are very small farmers. And look, I'm totally okay with people trying all kinds of things. I'm open to new experiments to potentially inhibit this virus. And taking a risk every once in a while isn't the worst possible scenario. But taking a risk with really bad ideas can oftentimes lead to really bad results. The article goes on to say, if this plan actually goes into effect, the virus would spread among a larger number of birds, putting more people and other animals at risk of infection. Right now, if a poultry farm has a positive test for the virus, it is reimbursed for culling its flocks to prevent its spread. If the virus were allowed to spread on purpose, bird flu infections would cause very painful deaths in nearly 100% of the chickens and turkeys, Dr. David Swain, a poultry veterinarian and former USDA employee, told The Times, adding that it would be inhumane, resulting in an unacceptable animal welfare crisis. And of course, Kennedy isn't even operating on the right information. He claimed in one interview that the virus didn't seem to affect wild birds, which is completely utter and complete bullshit, because thousands of birds are affected by the virus in the wild environment. Most of them we don't even know about because, of course, they're wild, but we do know about many that have. Kennedy also theorizes that some chickens and turkeys may be immune, but scientists say that poultry lacks the genes needed to resist the virus. Once again, pointing out that Kennedy's education on any one of these subjects is severely lacking. It seems that Kennedy's pseudoscience is spreading unchecked as well. He's already been putting his anti-vaccine beliefs into practice at HHS by curtailing multiple vaccine research projects and directing resources towards researching the debunked conspiracies that vaccines, yeah, the thing with autism. His latest idea on the bird flu is dangerous and could end up having disastrous consequences for public health and U.S. agriculture. Not to mention skyrocketing prices once again in the market as we're about to enter the spring, which due to migration actually leads to an uptick in these avian flu cases. This might actually be the dumbest administration that has ever existed. We are literally at a point where egg prices could possibly come down. And instead of using these tried and true methods that have gotten us through this problem before, people like RFK Jr. and other people within Trump's administration have decided that, you know what we should do? We should do the herd immunity thing with chickens that don't have the gene to fight off this actual virus. And why would we do that? Because this administration is dumb. And the people that follow them want to believe that certain ideas within their community are going to be the ideas that actually get us out of this. So this is a chart that has been making the rounds on the internet recently. And in this chart, you can see that egg prices have dropped significantly, especially over the last month. This is due, of course, to the reasons that I've already said. Egg demand going down and the culling of the flocks working. Many people that are sharing this chart are sharing this chart as though this is some type of Trump win. One of the issues with this chart is that this chart is talking about wholesale prices on eggs, specifically medium eggs, not large eggs. Large eggs are the egg that is most often laid by hens and is the most often consumed by people. In fact, almost every recipe that you ever get will have the number of the eggs specifically in regard to large eggs. So though these prices are going down, this isn't on the eggs that are going into the market and being sold to consumers. But that's not necessarily a bad thing because potentially this could lead to other prices going down on large eggs as well. But we're not seeing that yet. In fact, if you head over to Fred, the economic data site for the St. Louis Fed, you can see here that egg prices as of February continue to elevate. And if you head over to the U.S. Consumer Price Index on eggs, you can also see here as well that consumers are still paying a higher price for eggs in the store. This is the problem of having egomaniacs and narcissists in charge of our government. Instead of taking an easy W set up by the prior administration, RFK Jr. wants to release the virus into the chicken population that once again cannot fight off this virus, and it has something like a 90% mortality in these chickens. Not to mention that it could jump species just like the swine flu that made its way into pigs and then eventually made its way into humans. This administration instead wants to be able to take credit. Or maybe I'm just wrong and they're just a bunch of morons, and every time that they have some weird ass idea given to them by the worm in their brain, they just have to try it. But I don't know about you as far as prices for consumers go. I would rather just see that people pay lower prices on eggs regardless of whose idea it was. It just seems to me that if things are working, maybe you should leave it alone. And I think the same thing could be said about vaccinations and many other things within our government that were working perfectly fine before this administration decided they were going to burn it all to the ground and start it all over again. But then again, maybe that's why they want the virus to go out there and get into all these chickens and be let loose to run amok. Maybe it's just one more reason to crash the economy, to put us in a bad place, so that way they can have more control over us. Or, once again, maybe they're just morons. It's hard to tell. All right, guys. Well, you guys let me know what you think in the comments. Is this something that they think is going to work, or are they just actually trying to crash the economy? Either way, I hope that this video was helpful and maybe even educational. And remember, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. And I hope to see you next time. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell, and check out that video on the screen now.